Today's topic is the creation of the British dollar and the Anglo-Japanese rivalry in Far East in this period. As today's report is still at the stage of preliminary study, it is incomplete in many senses. My study attempts to point out that the minting of coins was a very important theater of tug of war in the international relations of East Asia in this period, because most great powers intended to promote the use of their coins in East Asia, especially in China, for the sake of enhancing their economic influence in this region. So before dealing with the main story, it is necessary to provide some context about how money works in China, because it dominates that part of the world. In the 19th century, China had a metallic system that was based on silver and copper. Silver currencies were used in large transactions, while copper coins were used in small payments. However, China's metallic system was very different from Europe's. For example, all money was passed by weight, not by tell. The rate of exchange, the value of the money, and the method of payment varied from time to time, from region to region. So it's quite hard to treat China as a single entity in the sense of monetary system. And the provision of one of the major silver money, shoe-shaped silver ingots, or precisely, was completely controlled by the market without any intervention of without intervention of the state. And at the same time, while the government accounts and taxation system were denominated in a certain weight of silver, there is an absence of silver coinage. So in short, the imperial government did not have strict control over coinage and money exchange. And China had a monetary system that lacked uniformity, and it had a huge variation in relation to time and place. So the supply of silver currency was organized in a kind of laissez-faire fashion, since most silver was imported from overseas and freely minted by private enterprises rather than the authorities. These two pictures are from the HSBC Hong Kong archives. This is a silver ingot, and this is how Chinese copper coins were put into a strings. Yeah, and they were used in some of the daily payments or large payments. Yeah. So the Chinese monetary system shaped the payment practices between Chinese and foreign merchants. And because of Chinese hunger for silver, European and American traders brought an enormous amount of silver to China in return for tea, silk, porcelains, and other Chinese goods. And silver was the most important precious metal to China's economy, by which the price in the Chinese domestic market hung. From the aspect of foreign trade, the Chinese specifically demand silver dollars from Spain, Mexico, and other American countries, because they used to receive this kind of coined silver in their trade with Westerners. In the 3 centuries before the Opium War, so this was the situation faced by the British, and after they colonized Hong Kong, and they needed to regulate trade and currency on the island. So from this part, we can see that these are the sample images of the Spanish dollar and Mexican silver dollars. And because of the influx of dollars from America, silver dollars were widely accepted by the Chinese and became the standard currency in coastal China, where prices accounted for dollars, not in taels or not in cash. Okay, so when Britain colonized Hong Kong in 1841, they tried to integrate Hong Kong into an imperial monetary system, which mostly used pound sterling and other gold-based money, such as gold mohur from India. But they soon realized that Hong Kong's currency system must be compatible with Chinese traditions and long transaction practice between China and the West. These circumstances then led to the major monetary reform in the early 1860s, which was marked by the creation of the Hong Kong dollar and Hong Kong mint. So yeah, so these are the things that happened before the 1860s. Between 1841 and 1863, so they tried to install a monetary system based on sterling, but it failed. Yeah, and at that time, the insufficiency of the Spanish and Mexican dollars caused inconvenience in trade in China. And also the insecurity of the dependence on Mexico to supply coins for the colonial administration and merchants. So these conditions led to a need to reform Hong Kong's currency system. So the reform in 1863 can be summarized into three policies. So the first one is to change the unit of account of all public accounts from sterling to dollar. The second one is to mint silver and copper subsidiary coins denominated in Hong Kong dollar. And the third one is to establish a royal branch mint at Hong Kong to mint $1 and $half coins. So yes, okay. So this excerpt is from one of the royal mint's records, in which mentioned the weight and fineness of the Hong Kong dollar. According to the policymakers' designs, the content of the Hong Kong dollar was almost the same as that of the Mexican dollar. So you can see the weight in here. 0.878 ounce is nearly equal to about 416 grains, and the fineness should be about 90%. Yeah. Wait. So through these changes, Britain tried to reshape Hong Kong's currency system in a silver standard system. And under the system, Spanish and Mexican dollars, So they predict that the coining of Hong Kong dollars would have stabilized the supply of silver dollar coins in order to lubricate Britain's trade in East Asia. However, due to various reasons, the Hong Kong mint did not perform well and became a serious financial burden. Finally, after a period of operation of less than 3 years, the Hong Kong authorities decided to close the mint and sold the machinery to Japan, who later used the same set of equipment to set up the Osaka mint and produce Japanese silver yen. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so after the closing of the Hong Kong mint, this is the situation faced by the home and sorry about that. Wait. Okay. So after the closing of the Hong Kong mint, the absence of stable supply of silver dollars remained, and the British merchants need to find new ways to cope with the rising needs of dollars that Chinese usually use in transaction. And business in China continued to be hindered by the confusing state of currency where all money will pass by weight. So the result is that Hong Kong's reform in the 1860s only gained limited achievement. Yeah, though they changed the public account from sterling denominated to dollars, and the Royal Mint in London trying to supply silver and copper subsidiary coins to Hong Kong. But there is a shortage. The shortage of large denomination silver coins is still can't be found. So the question remains unsolved. How can a stable supply of large denomination coins for the colony of Hong Kong be maintained? So this is the situation faced by the home and colonial authorities after 1868, and the beginning of the story that I'm going to tell. After the closure of the Hong Kong Mint, 6 proposals were made by officials and merchants in Hong Kong to address the shortage of clean dollar coins. And among them, so these are the 6 proposals, including legalizing the American trade dollar, legalizing the Japanese silver yen, introducing a new British dollar, reopening the Hong Kong Mint, eliminating chopped or damaged Mexican dollars, and issuing or deal with the problem with issuing paper monies. Yeah. So among these 6 proposals, the British dollar and the Japanese silver yen were the most favorable options. Due to the time limit, I'm sorry that I cannot go into detail about all suggestions. So first of all, about the proposal of importing Japanese money, the chief reason we must ask who suggested it and why was it suggested? The chief reason is that the yen's fineness and weight are equivalent to the Hong Kong dollar, and so as the Mexican dollar. This is because they were struck by the same equipment and machinery and with the same standard. According to the Royal Proclamation in 1863 and some local ordinances in Hong Kong, if a silver coin's fineness and weight were the same as the Mexican dollar, it could be given the status of legal tender. Another important reason is that the director and foreign technicians hired by the Japanese Mint had served in the Hong Kong Mint. Therefore, businessmen and the colonial government were familiar with experts who worked for the Osaka Mint. Okay, so the question is how to do that. The first method is by passing a local ordinance to confirm yen as a legal tender, so that merchants and officials can begin to use Japanese money in different kind of payments and also use in the taxation payments. And the second way is to sign a contract with the Japanese government, which stipulates that Hong Kong would send bullion to the Osaka Mint and pay a certain percentage of seigniorage. In return, the Japanese government will supply the coins of Hong Kong, for Hong Kong. Yeah. And behind this suggestion, there are some international factors that must be mentioned. So Hong Kong, apart from Hong Kong, other major trading or players in the game, including the Guangdong province and the Straits settlements, recognized Japanese silver yen as a legal tender. And in the 1890s, it circulated in all Chinese treaty ports. So that's another reason why legalizing the Japanese yen can be a very attractive option to the Hong Kong authorities. So between 1873 and 1895, there were several attempts to legalize the Japanese silver yen or the Japanese trade dollar. So the first attempt was suggested by a bank called the Oriental Banking Corporation. So about this bank, it's the most prestigious British bank in the Far East before 1884, and it was the first bank. It was the first bank to issue banknotes in Hong Kong. It was one of the two deposit banks that handled Japan's indemnity to Britain, and it also deeply involved in the operations of the Osaka Mint, such as the exchange and the recruitment of foreign technicians. So considering its deep roots in Britain's political and commercial activities in Japan and China, it somehow explained why this bank attempted to legalize or push for this suggestion in Hong Kong. However, it was rejected by the Hong Kong General Chamber of Commerce and other major banks in Hong Kong because there is general distrust towards the capability of Japan to maintain the declared weight and fineness of their coin. And also, so it's not just about a distrust toward their ability, but also about sometimes some kind of racial discrimination involved in this kind of opinions. Yeah. And the second attempt is launched by the Japanese consul in Hong Kong, Taro Ando. So in 1875, the Japanese government began to issue a trade dollar that specifically catered to the needs of merchants who did business in China and Southeast Asia. And so in February 1878, the consul officially requested the Hong Kong government to legalize Japanese trade dollars. But before the negotiation reached any result, the Japanese government seized the coinage of the trade dollars. And so it ends the entire suggestion about the trade dollar. And at the same time, apart from legalizing the trade dollar, the Japanese council also tried to legalize the Japanese silver yen in Hong Kong again. But this time, the Japanese council had the support of the Hong Kong Chamber of Commerce and the governor of Hong Kong. However, this time it was blocked by the Colonial Office and Harry Parkes, the British plenipotentiaries in Japan. So the reason is that they thought without the aid of British technicians, the British government doubted Japan's ability to continually produce the Japanese silver yen in large quantities and at the same time maintain its quality. Well, the Japanese government made another attempt in 1887, but this time they faced a strong resistance from the Hong Kong Chamber and Commerce and HSBC. So from these attempts, we can see that the opinions of merchants and the colonial authorities in Hong Kong swaying for several times, and because of various reasons, these attempts easily blocked. And so in the mid-1890s, the fifth attempt appeared, and it's the culmination of the entire movement. And also, the fifth attempt is the closest to success in all of them. So this time, the legalization project started by the Hong Kong General Congress, HSBC, and the governor of Hong Kong, which means it was supported by all of the political and economic elites in the colony. I will return, however, it also resulted in a failure, and I will return to the fifth attempt later. Okay, so these images are from the British Museum collection. So from the left-hand corner, it shows a sample of the Japanese silver yen at that time. From this part, you can see that like this is the weight, the official weight, 460 grains, and the finest. And both of these figures are similar or the same as the Hong Kong dollar. And from the right-hand corner, this is the sample of an image of the Japanese trade dollars. We can see that the finest are also 90%, but it's slightly heavier than the Hong Kong dollar and the Japanese silver yen. Okay. Okay. So about the proposal of coining British dollars. So we also need to start with two questions. Who suggested and why was it suggested? So like the yen, local merchants and bankers suggested the minting of British dollars. The essence of this suggestion is to protect Hong Kong from its dependence on Mexico, whose political stability was in question. The biggest obstacle stemmed from the expected cost of coining British dollars. Because of the experience of the Hong Kong Mint, the Home authorities constantly rejected this idea as it might be unprofitable and costly. And so the Home authorities were inclined to purchase Mexican dollars on the London market and ship them to Hong Kong. The debate became the hottest when a monetary crisis was looming between 1893 and 1895. So what happened in those years is that there was the scarcity of Mexican dollars gradually worsened in the early 1890s. It cannot be procured in either London or the United States. And the second thing is that India adopted the gold standard in 1893. So why it matters? And why was there a serious problem? The reason is that India's adoption of the gold standard lead the market to expect that the silver price would heavily decline along with its demand. So Hong Kong businessmen feared that when the silver price endlessly decreased, Mexico would eventually cease minting Mexican dollars. And so Hong Kong would be cut off from the supply of its legal tender. This is like an excerpt from the newspaper. So we can see that the market feared Mexico would switch from silver standard to gold standard. Yeah, right. Yes. Okay, so. And from this news report, we can see that like both the Chamber of Commerce and the governor expressed their interest in discussing the feasibility of yen's legalization. So we can see that like from this place, yeah. Like, yeah. Japanese yen being made legal tender here as the only immediate relief we can look for in the event of the supply of the time-honored Mexican being inadequate to the requirements of the great and growing China trade. Yeah, and also we also mentioned that the popularity of the coin and the not unnatural desire of the enterprising and progressive Japanese government to furnish the trading medium of the East seem to indicate it as the most valuable auxiliary we can obtain if there is to be, as we fear, in the supply of the Mexican coins. So the most interesting thing is that among all the arguments that support the yen's legalization is that the British recognized the yen because they considered the Japanese government to be progressive. The British no longer regard the Japanese as some kind of barbarians and believe that they were capable of minting high standard coins. Compared with previous attempts, we can see how the British views towards the Japanese changed dramatically in the second half of the 19th century. And luckily, this time, the Colonial Office did not see any reason to object the yen's legalization. So these are some of the excerpts I extract from the Colonial Office files C0129. Yeah. And moreover, the Colonial Office even predicted that the circulation of yen was extending in various treaty ports. So making the yen as Hong Kong's legal tender would further increase its circulation in China. So if merchants in Hong Kong and China were going to use the same currency, it would have simplified the cost of transactions and smoothen Britain's trade with China. But when the debate seemed to reach its end, the movement for yen's legalization was suddenly halted. So we can see that from an extract from Telegram on 16th January of 1894. Local government, China Association, and the Chamber of Commerce deprecate legalizing Japanese yen, and British dollar strongly recommended. All of a sudden, political and commercial leaders in the colonies swayed to the coinage of the British dollar and abandoned the legalization of yen, which they had petitioned. Out of the blue, the unexpected U-turn of the attitude of the Hong Kong elites confused the Colonial Office. From this place, we can read their attitudes, like the Hong Kong people will probably change their minds again and want the yen, not the British dollar. So what happened and what led to the change of the attitude? So in fact, in July of 1893, when the Hong Kong General Chamber of Commerce wanted yen to be a legal tender, they also appointed a committee to investigate Hong Kong's currency question. The committee then submitted a report to the General Chamber after a series of investigations. And in January 1894, the Chamber passed a resolution to support the British dollar proposal. Yeah. And so, but even considering this part of event, the Secretary of State for the colonies was still confused by the Hong Kong authorities and merchants, and so he sought advice from the Secretary of State for India. The reply is that the India office and the Indian Secretary agreed to support the Hong Kong Chamber of Commerce on the proposal of minting British dollars, and so the Colonial Office also agreed to proceed the plans of the minting of British dollars. So what are the underlying reasons of the change of attitude? So first of all, is about political reasons. It would make Hong Kong independent of foreign countries in regard to its currency. And the second one is that the merchants in Hong Kong consider that there is an upsurge of anti-foreign feeling in Japan, and that would put Hong Kong at the mercy of a country whose attitude was dubious. And the third point is that the Chamber predicted Japan would soon adopt the gold standard. It would mean that the silver yen supply may not be prolonged. So in fact, after Japan defeated China in the Sino-Japanese War in April 1895, Japan soon adopted the gold standard, which led to the demonetization of the Japanese silver yen. Considering this point, we may consider that they are quite insightful and correctly predict what would soon happen. And also, the fourth reason is that the Hong Kong Chamber of Commerce has already gained concurrence of the London Chamber of Commerce. So with the cooperation of London merchants, they consider the plan as more than prepared than in previous 2 decades. The fifth point is that there's a fear of the looming competition between British and Japanese capitalists in the area. So they can, it's symbolized by the rise of the Yokohama Specie Bank. So the Japanese bank competed with English banks in the field of exchange operations and quickly expand and set up branches in British East Asia possessions. And the Hong Kong Chamber did not want to strengthen their opposition and Japanese influence in East Asia with British monies. Yeah. And the last and the most important one is that the Indian government agreed to coin British dollars at Bombay Mint with a 1% senior rate, which makes the entire project can be proceeded in an instantly. Yeah. Okay, so this is an excerpt, an image from the Hong Kong Government Gazette, and it is the Hong Kong Coinage Order. So on the 2nd February of 1895, Britain finally authorized the Royal Mint and the Bombay Mint to be accountable for producing British dollars for Hong Kong. Yeah. So these are the images from the British Museum on the collections. So we can see the British dollar features a standing Britannia, and because of this design, the British dollar gained a nickname called 站人 in Hong Kong and China, which means a standing figure. Yeah. And from the table included in the Hong Kong Government Gazette, we can notice that the content of the British dollar and the Hong Kong dollar had theoretically no difference, and both of them were slightly lighter and contained less silver than the Mexican dollar. So from the perspective of imperialism or international relations, what can we learn? In the first place, the attempt to legalize the Japanese currency was indeed a competition for influence between the two countries. Japan's insistence on promoting its currency in Hong Kong was a move to strengthen its power projection. And secondly, the rejection of silver yen in the 3 decades largely stemmed from political economic considerations. Some arguments of the British were actually based on racial discrimination against the Japanese. And about the second point, although Japan gained recognition from the British after the Sino-Japanese War, the rise and the emergence of this country worried the British. And the governor and the British merchants in the Far East then regarded Japan as a potential competitor to political and economic, to Britain's political and economic hegemony in East Asia. And thirdly, due to the fact that a strong connection exists between Hong Kong and Japan, some prominent agitators had vested interest behind their suggestions. And last but not least, minting silver coin was one of the most obvious features of imperialism in China. The struggle between the two countries was in conjunction with the great powers' rivalry and competition for monetary dominance in China. Yeah. And also from the point of viewpoint of Hong Kong's history, so these are the two main importance that I consider. The first one is that the minting of British dollars and the long absence of a stable coin supply system in the colony. And the second point is that Hong Kong became the entrance for the British Empire to expand its influence in China by importing a British dollar through trade in the various Chinese treaty ports. Thank you for your toleration.
Thank you.